Hello, friends, and welcome to Cinephile Saturday. We're back to a normal schedule, I hope. So this week we are discussing Alien, and we'll be discussing the franchise every week, and then we'll take in a break for the holiday, and then come back after that for the other two movies at the end. It should be an interesting journey. So with me today is Anthony and Susana. So Anthony, will you give us an introduction?
Yes, hello. I am Anthony Self. I've got a YouTube channel called Horrible, where I play a lot of indie horror games. Used to do some movie reviews, not so much now. I'm just having too much damn fun on the indie games. Yeah, and I've written a couple of books.
Oh yeah, by the way, I have some. Yeah, I wrote a couple of books, really good books too, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and Susana.
Hello, my name is Susana Imaginário. I also write books and I run a YouTube channel called Den of the Weird. And I love to talk about movies and books and stories in general.
Yeah, really good books too. There's really great authors today.
Thank you.
So I've seen this movie I don't know how many times, but I feel like the older you get, or the more times you watch it, maybe you start to notice different things as you age and as you look at it differently. The first thing that I thought of, just we get a good layout of the ship and kind of the environments and the technology. What I noticed is that they like, because you look at some science fiction movies now and they'll try to predict what things will look like in the future. They'll try to have a screen that's touch screen that's floating in the air. You can move things around. They spend a lot of time doing those things, but in this one, a lot of it's like cigarette ashtrays, coffee cups, paper. So it almost, I kind of felt like it draws you in because it seems familiar. It's a science fiction story about a ship in the middle of space. So there's a lot of technology, but it's elements of that time period. So I feel like it maybe brings the viewer in and doesn't seem so fantastical that you couldn't see yourself in that position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100% agree. Sorry, Susanna, go.
No, it just has they feel very comfortable on the ship. Usually in science fiction or movies of that time, everything was so neat and clean and shiny and structure. And they're just having lunch, having a smoke, and the coffee is just they are in their living room. You kind of forget that they are in a spaceship, but it helps, at least to me, the viewer, to relate to the characters. It's almost, oh, you know that could be me. Just they come across as very, I don't want to say mundane or ordinary, but you know they don't come across as the sort of person that you could never aspire to be. They're just very professional, etc., but very relatable people. Just,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think like going on that sort of thing, like you have the Nostromo as this basically this little tug ship, really, isn't it? Sort of thing. I think the conceptual artist Ron Cobb kind of wanted the kind of stark, pardon me, wanted the stark design to kind of be like these like blue collared guys just basically getting a paycheck. That's what they're doing, right? They're just here to do the job. So everything like on that ship is like has a function, that's what I kind of particularly love about the kind of very slow sort of start to Alien is the kind of panning across the ship. You see all the kind of decks, you see the A deck, B deck, C deck. The C deck being the one with all the kind of like just almost like a submarine in that respect. It's kind of compact. It's designed literally for doing its job, and that's what the crew are there for as well. They just want their paycheck. There's obviously it gives you time to kind of get to know these well-known and beloved characters, kind of thing throughout the. I think the actual alien beast doesn't turn up for like the first 40 minutes of the film, so you get to know these characters, and even though some of them barely say a lot, i.e., kind of Brett sort of thing in that respect, his famous line of like, right. It's character work, and that in itself, like, yeah, the design of the Nostromo tugboat ship is just that. It's stark. It's kind of like, you look at the kind of films of the time, like Star Wars and New Hope, it's all very white and all very neat and very clean. The Nostromo or by design, by purpose, is grimy. You kind of feel like these guys have been in this like tugboat for such a long time now that all they want to do is just get home and get their paycheck, and that's it.
Yeah, and what have you said? It looks dirty and messy. They have like sweat stains. They have like stains on their shirts. They seem very like. 'Cause I would imagine if you're on a ship in the middle of space, you're not going to be, so proper and trimmed, and you're not going to look your best every day because who cares? Like you're around the same people, and all the characters.
Exactly.
I like that they brought in the labor parts of it. Like that's not my job. That's not what I'm paid to do. Because that also brings like a human element to it, because it feels like people or you've known, but this isn't my job, or we're not a rescue team. That's I'm going to complain to the union about what we're doing, things like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like the conflict that you have between the characters is great. I mean, you have like the kind of the grease monkeys. You have the kind of Brett and Parker, who are the engineers. So yeah, they're going to be the ones getting the kind of filthy grime, and you got the kind of Ellen Ripley's the warrant officer, who's just there to kind of like solve problems when they come and arise. Dallas, the world weary captain. Lambert, the navigator, who's the kind of heart of the kind of story, I guess, and the kind of the one that the kind of audiences, I guess, relate to even more, because like she's the one from the very get-go when they find the transmission detail. She's like, don't know about this. It's the little nuances between the characters that I really love. And then going back to what you're saying about the kind of ship design and whatnot, obviously with each new kind of rendition of the film that comes out, you just get to see a little bit more of the ship like in the background. And like one thing I noticed recently is like just John Hurt sitting there when they're on the bridge, this very kind of cramped style of bridge, and then you just got like you see this kind of gaffer tape on his seat, you see some like tearing on the seats of the leather and everything like that. It's a rugged ship, and it kind of reflects the characters, I think, in that respect. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting you bring up Lambert, because from what I read is that she was almost Veronica Cartwright. I think she was originally cast as Ripley, and I think they changed it before they filmed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really
It did
interesting when
change.
you kind of see, who could have been. Apparently, Harrison Ford was allegedly meant to be Dallas and turned it down. So there's a number of. It's one of those weird ones. When you see a film, you watch a film, you're like, you hear then after the fact, like, was it Tom Selleck was meant to play? Who was it? Indiana Jones originally. And like, can you imagine now, like looking back on the kind of history of certain franchises and certain characters and how that would have been portrayed by different actors? Not to say that, any of the kind of actors themselves would have brought their own niche to it, but you just can't now see like Yaphet Kotto as Parker. Like I couldn't see anyone else playing that role. He's such a kind of charismatic sort of person that you couldn't see anyone else playing that. Like Ripley, like has now gone on, with all the kind of following films after that sort of thing, and her arc going as it does. Who else could you sort of see that in the original Alien? Like she's the bookish kind of do it by the book kind of person. You kind of think at the start of this film that probably Dallas is going to be the main protagonist, the main hero of the story. And then we find out later on down the line he's not. And it's only kind of through the process of elimination that Ripley kind of comes out sort of thing of this kind of bookish do it by the book sort of protocol. And it's about survival. It's about mortality, and she has to kind of beat the alien to that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Oh gosh, I wish I looked it up. I don't know if it's a meme or a proper review, but I once read a description of Alien that goes something like, group of men, doesn't listen to the clever woman and they all die. Um, Rewatching the movie recently, I was like, yeah, that actually applies. And it was interesting because I never thought of Alien as a horror movie. I always thought as science fiction. My relationship with horror is I am learning to define horror. And watching it again, just the the chain of poor reactions, of poor decisions to develop the plot. it was almost to the point of ridicule. I don't know. I was getting stressed with the just bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and then Ripley just going, "No, no, don't do that. How are you going to do it anyway? Don't open the door. Yes, you're going to open the door. Don't bring him in. Don't do this." And in the beginning, she's portrayed as almost like this bitch that is, against everyone, and how dare you, leaving him outside, etc. And yeah, that is the standard horror movie, just bad decision after bad decision, and but I guess it's necessary for the story to happen. But I thought it was funny watching it again. Just I was shaking my head the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Even Lambert is she's trying to convince Ripley to let her on let her on the ship because the quarantine. Ripley's trying to follow the rules, and of course Ash lets them in because he has other motivations, as we learn. Kind of just opens the door for them. But yeah, I did like that somebody was like, somebody had to stand up and say, we can't do this because you put everyone in at risk. And of course, if you're in that, I guess if a friend of yours has a thing wrapped around his face, you're going to want to help him, and that kind of goes out the window in that moment. But at least you tried. But I like how Lambert, slaps her when she comes there.
One of the
So
famously
rude,
deleted
so
scenes.
sloppy.
Yeah.
Oh, they deleted
It's
it?
interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think in the original version, when Kane is brought into the medical bay, it just kind of cuts to Brett, Parker, Ripley, and Lambert in the kind of corridor, and you just see that something's happened, but you don't know what. If you haven't seen it, then you wouldn't probably know. But Lambert just has a face like Storm, and Ripley's obviously a bit emotional, sort of thing, because she's just been slapped in the face. But it's interesting as well that you talk about the quarantine thing, because there is some lore that goes back with Ripley. I think if you kind of look on the wiki sort of information, when she was a child, she was actually quarantined for about 9 years because of some kind of basically like a kind of COVID type thing that happened on the kind of colony that she was staying at. So when you kind of have that information, when you see it, you can now understand like more so of a character's, like we don't know until the second film that she's actually got a daughter, sort of thing. So there's another reason. It's just like little pieces of lore that kind of like build up a certain character and their certain traits. And I think that's one of the main reasons why she's so, like, you can say that she's really doesn't want to let them back in because they have to go through quarantine, and she's overridden by Ash, as you said, because he has his own motivations to preserve the alien.
But they could have stopped at any point. Okay, so they had no choice that the ship was. They had to stop there and go investigate. Never mind that none of them was qualified to go investigate anything like that. But okay, circumstances. And then you find an alien ship and say, okay, it's an alien ship. Let's go back and report something. No, let's continue and go inside. Okay. Oh, there's this dead creature. Obviously died in a horrible way. Let's continue. Why? Do we expect to find live ones? I don't know. Then eggs. Oh, and there's a life form inside. Again, never mind that no one was equipped or had any knowledge to deal with the situation. But, you still go check.
Once again,
Yeah,
though, I think
yeah.
you raise a good point, because you could sort of say on one hand that in order for the plot to go forward that he has. But once again, like Kane's character, already that he's like this kind of overachiever, that he's an adventurer sort of thing. When they hear the distress call, like Kane is the first one that's like, I'll be on the first away team, and Dallas is right, yeah, I figured that kind of thing. So there are those little instances where you could, like, I totally completely agree with you that it's like, hey, you see this kind of jockey sort of thing with its kind of ribcage burst out. We've never seen this type of thing before. We're going to like look on, this beacon's come from somewhere, right? And then you go down into the kind of, you see thousands of eggs, you do not go up to them and go like, oh, look at this. There's something organic in here. And it kind of it kind of just screams that you would be like, but I think that's part of the allure and part of the aesthetic as well, is like you're screaming at the screen like, don't the little kind of laser line, don't break it. You fall into the thing. Oh, okay. You want to just pull on that rope and say, lift me up, guys, come on. But that's once again, that's part of the character. I think is the arc of the character is like he's very investigative, wants to kind of explore space, and that we forget that these guys are in space. And if they get a distress call and they're going to some new area, there is that kind of almost like Star Trekky sort of like, we must discover new things. And I think Kane exemplifies that type of character. And he is the reason, like he is solely that person. Like Lambert would never have gone down there, right? Dallas probably might have done if something was amiss or someone was in trouble, but it had to be Kane because he is that personifies that kind of explorative spirits, shall we say. So yeah, I understand, like, it does move the plot forward as well, and then obviously they come back to the ship, and then the next kind of decision, the next bad decision that's made is to not let them on board. It would have been interesting if the film went a different way, and like Ripley was like, no, you're being quarantined, you can stay out here for however XYZ amount of hours, and then the alien creature burst outside the ship, and like, would it have made its way in anyway? We never know, but it's more dramatic if he comes back on board, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing that I've thought it was wrong. It was finally when the alien is born, hatched. I don't know how to call it. And then they were all, while it was still attached to his face, no one wants to freeze it again.
Mm-hmm.
So many opportunities if you wanted to study the thing, but no. But again, that was Ash. Ash was manipulating the whole thing, so fine. But then after it was hatched, born, they send the body into space. So what about preserving? Suddenly, it was no longer important. Now we have the life thing. I don't know. These little things, I know I am nitpicking at this point, were things that I did not cross my mind at all the first time. I didn't see a problem with it. When I was a kid, everything was like, amazing. Now I couldn't help notice, plot-wise that it could have been done better. Missed opportunities, I guess.
Yeah, I did wonder after all that, and then they jettisoned the dead body. Like, why?
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but panic, I guess. But
maybe they were thinking that the body, because there's the scene where Ripley sort of says, like, if it bleeds acid for blood when it's alive, who knows what's going to do when it's dead.
mm-hmm.
I would assume that the reason why they jettisoned the body was because of the fact that it could have left a pathogen or some type of disease inside the body that they didn't want to risk the further infection of the crew. I mean, they're kind of already stumped at that point, right? But why would you risk any further contagion sort of thing, I guess, within the rest of the crew? That's my kind of thought process of it.
Yeah, I guess seeing Covenant, and we'll get to that eventually, but I guess there's kind of a chance they could have a airborne thing, but that's way ahead. But the ship, the design of the ship and the space jockey, I remember way back learning about what they call the space jockey, which now know as engineers, but it's such a cool design for a creature. And you have, going back now, you wonder, okay, so what came out of it and where is that creature?
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about those type of films when you kind of find out when he obviously established a franchise like the Alien franchise has been, and then you kind of then try to explain what certain things were in the first film. That's what I always thought was quite magical of Alien, was that there was this, no pun intended, alien creature that was so alien that you didn't even know what it looked like. And yeah, something's erupted from its chest, and they're exploring this kind of cavernous ship. And that was always kind of at the forefront of my mind. So what has exploded from this thing, and where is it? Is this thing still running around in here? That kind of adds that kind of dramatic sort of tension to the scene. But now that we, as you said, like, he's gone from space jockey to then going to the engineers, and now we know the kind of their backstory, I think it kind of diminishes some of the mystery from the first film a little bit. If and when the next trilogy of films, so you had the Prometheus, Covenant, and then the next one, if you get to see the kind of cycle, if it then kind of comes back to, Ripley's team finding the derelict spaceship on LV-426 or LV-426, sorry, then that would be a nice kind of tying the bow of the present. Like, you have the kind of complete cycle. If it's going to go that way, I don't know. I probably not, sort of thing. They'll probably find some other kind of area of themes to go through. But I think personally I preferred not knowing what the space jockey was, having that kind of mystery. But then, I think I don't know how old you guys were when you first watched it. I was probably too young to actually probably see it at the time, but that's the way to do things, I think. There were so many sort of themes and layers that at my young age couldn't comprehend. And even like when you mentioned, Steve, earlier on, of like, the more times you see it, there are different aspects that you kind of see, the different layers at play here, the kind of corporate greed of the Weyland-Yutani company that were just known as the company back in the first film. They're kind of, chasing profit margins to kind of get that. They basically put an android on this ship to kind of make sure that this kind of being gets transferred back for their weapons biodivision or whatever it may be. At the time when I was really young, when I first watched it, obviously the alien creature design by H.R. Geiger sort of thing was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. And, Ridley Scott is a pro sort of thing. You never see the kind of the full alien sort of thing until the very last like 2 minutes when it's in space and you're like, it's just a man in a suit, really, isn't it? But apart from that, like it's all tight up close shots of like the first time when it comes down to get to get Brett. Ingenious like way of introducing this creature as well. Like, let's have it come down from the ceiling, not from the left or the right. Like, you get in a lot of kind of horror trope sort of gotcha moments. This comes down from the ceiling. The kind of the tubes, the biomechanical design, it just terrified me as a child. Obviously, growing older now, I see other things that aren't just about the beast, about the creature. It's about like the kind of the company. It's about the kind of the interaction with the characters. What are their kind of motivations? What are their kind of conflicts between each other? And you see it in like everyday life. You all have jobs kind of thing. You're 9 to 5. It's like how you kind of impress yourself on colleagues and like, are you the Cain, are you the Lambert of your job, your workplace? It's stuff like that really that I find really interesting now, looking back on it, years later.
You asked how young I was. We were when you first watched it. I don't know the exact age, but I was young enough that the first time I watched it, I only cared about the cat, pretty much. I couldn't care less who's dying or how. The alien was pretty cool, but I was just worried about the cat. I wanted the cat to live.
Cat needs to survive.
And now, exactly. And now, so I was pretty young. My parents let me watch anything on TV, so I did. And now I'm here thinking, because the fact that there was a cat on the ship, and we're talking about all the poor decisions and curiosity. I think there's some sort of allegory there. Curiosity kills the cat. Except the cat seemed to be the only character that was not curious about the alien at all. He knew exactly what he was looking at. He didn't want anything. It was clever than everyone else except Ripley. So it was nice that both survived. I was really happy with that.
I mean, you could argue that...
Did you think there was something there? I mean, they could have a dog or a rat or anything else.
I'd have liked an iguana. A lot of like Ridley Scott's films, like in Blade Runner, for example, you have that kind of like animal iconography sort of thing when you have... certain animals represent certain things, like the owl that you have in Blade Runner. When you see the kind of eyes, it's a kind of Pris who kind of like does the raccoon sort of spray paint on her eyes and stuff like that. Yeah, Jonesy, like, I mean, you could argue that Jonesy caused the death of Brett, originally. They're going with the motion tracker, trying to find it. It's in the little cabinet. Squeals away, gets through the net, and then, Parker's like, well, we have to grab it again, otherwise we'll find it on the tracker again. Leads him into like the most, I don't even know what this area is of the ship sort of thing, where they have the chains dangling. I know that it was an area of contention between Ridley Scott and the producers, because they were like, why is water coming down from these why are they dangling chains here? You could argue that maybe this is a kind of mining sort of area sort of part of the ship where they have like particular things. I never really understood that myself. Like I do think, I mean, it looks really good on camera, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of times when you have to kind of subtract a certain amount of logic, I guess, just to make the shot look good. But I always found that fascinating. Like, what is this area? It's like a kind of blast furnace sort of type of area. Is it kind of mining? Where are these chains? What are they doing with the chains? But obviously, Jonesy leads Brett to his death. So maybe Jonesy had an ulterior motive all along.
It worked for the company.
He was the alien.
Yeah.
Trained by the company. I wonder how much money was spent keeping that cat in cryo sleep.
Yeah. I mean, how does the cryo sleep work in that respect? Because like by the end of the film, you see Ripley in the hypersleep chamber with the cat. Do they share the same oxygen? I guess they do. But there you go.
Yeah.
Never thought of that.
Yeah,
it's probably the oldest cat in the world as well, because like in the next film, was it 56 years later? That's got to be a record, right? It's Guinness Book of World Records. Call them up.
Yeah, it's an old cat.
But
go ahead, Suzanne. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask if you think the movie would have worked. If that script would have worked if it wasn't for Geiger's work, if it wasn't for the artwork, the sets, the alien itself. Imagine if instead of the alien was Predator, something. If it would work.
I don't think it could have done. I mean, you see like a lot of the creature features of that era. You look at stuff like as you mentioned, the Predator. Like even when once again I was probably too young to watch Predator the first time. The majority of the film, we don't see what it is. It's using its kind of camouflaging, and then when you have that moment where Dutch is on the logs and we actually see the Predator and the kind of full profile for the first time, you're thinking, what is this creature with like dreadlocks and sort of like almost like fishnet type stockings type of thing going on? It's so bizarre when you first see it, and then when you remove the helmet and you see the mandibles and then it's like, wow, that's crazy. But then with H.R. Geiger's designs, that just takes the whole biomechanical level to an astral plane that I can't even comprehend. Like nothing in my worst nightmares could come up with this particular design. And they obviously, I think Ridley Scott and Ron Cobb and everyone else that was involved in the kind of hiring of Geiger, props have to be given to them, because I think they had to fight for him as well a lot with the studio, because it is such a terrifying type of creature. I mean, we've become a little bit desensitized, I think, over the years now, and we've seen it in so much mainstream media that it has lost its kind of bite. And I think that's the reason why, Scott in his later films has kind of not wanted to kind of champion the alien creature so much, because it has become part of our zeitgeist sort of thing in that respect. So it's more the kind of case of like, how can we, at the time in 1979, this thing that you see the fight, it's going to terrify anyone, and of course they're going to jump on the whole people fainting in the cinemas and at the infamous chest burster scene, and of course any news like that is going to promote your film. That's going to be great. But I can't see any other. It's just a kind of amalgamation of like these perfect ensemble cast, this perfect creature design, all coming together. But then talking about what could have been, like apparently the facehugger creature was meant to be green, apparently, and Geiger and the space jockey as well was meant to be painted. Like he hadn't finished the actual painting of the space jockey, and the company were like, "We don't have any more time. We have to shoot this," and he was very disappointed by that. But then in the end, it has this kind of flesh-colored tone to it, sort of thing, that gives it more of a familiar sort of style of, even though it's alien, it's kind of familiar, if that makes sense, like in a kind of creature. So yeah, no, I don't think you could have had any. I mean, look at going back to the Predator reference. If you've seen like the kind of what the Predator was originally when Jean-Claude Van Damme was playing as the monster, it was like this kind of stick insect figure from like the 50s, those kind of like 50s films. You've seen, if you can watch on YouTube, some of the kind of test footage that they were using for this creature, and it was like, if that had been the kind of creature they had gone with in that film, that it would have been a laughing stock. And so I think with this one, it's once again the culmination of like great direction, great editing. Because there's some test footage that you can see of the alien creature, like the actor whose name I forget off the top of my head, but the guy who was like 7 foot tall that was in the kind of suit. I think he was told to play the character as a child. So there's like certain scenes when you've got Brett, when you've got Parker and Lambert basically trying to get the air canisters, and you see the kind of the silhouette of the creature in the kind of lighting. Originally, the actor came in sort of crawling on his arms and on his
So
feet, sort
bad.
of thing, to kind of simulate. Yeah, it doesn't look good when
So
you watch
bad.
it, and you can understand why they cut it, sort of thing, or why it wasn't in the final thing. But you can also see a kind of that's another element as well that was brought to this. Like we're thinking that this alien creature is there to kill everyone. It's just there to survive. It's like everyone else on the crew. It's about survival. It's about mortality. And this creature, and that's why Ash, in his dying breaths, basically says like, "I admire its purity." It's kind of it's envious. This creature that's been designed by men, Ash feels impure, right? So he's like now turning around and saying, I envy this creature because it is pure. It's the most purest kind of like thing that's ever been created. Whereas I am just this machine that's been made by men who don't know what they're doing. So I'm impure. So I'm envious of that. Those kind of like themes are like really blow my mind. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Speaking of Geiger, it wasn't the scariest thing he ever designed. I was lucky enough to I've been to his museum.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, 20 years ago,
is it still open
and
now or
it's.
not?
I honestly I don't know.
I'm gonna have a quick look while we're.
Back
Sorry,
then,
Susanna.
it was quite the tourist attraction. It was. And the village itself, it's so beautiful and picturesque and right in the middle of the Alps, and then there's such a clash suddenly as, oh, what's this? And the stuff in there, though the alien is very tamed and easy to look at by comparison, but
The
beautiful. It's
museum
one
is
of
still open.
the
Yes.
best
Yeah.
experiences. One of
That's
the best
my
experiences.
one of my bucket lists. I need to go there, and I need to kind of see
Oh,
the inside of his mind in that respect. That would be great. When did you go?
yeah, it's almost 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, wow.
I was backpacking through Europe, and yeah, why not? It was a great day. We went up to the Alps, checked the museum, had a drink at the bar, beautiful place, and then went to have a tour at the Gruyere factory. So cheese and aliens. It was a
Nice.
beautiful day. Forever memorable.
Yeah, I think. His designs. I don't know that it would have had the same impact, and I think most people point to this movie when they want to demonstrate that less is more. That you don't always have to show us everything. I think sometimes leaving things to the imagination are better. And looking back at those scenes, Anthony, that you mentioned about him like crawling, like the crab crawl thing. I'm so glad they cut those because it looks so silly. It would have really put a damper on the creature. But yeah, with the ship and the eggs and the space jockey, when Prometheus and Covenant were being released, I'd always wanted to know the story and how did they get there and what came out of the space jockey and where the eggs come from and why did the ship crash and who set off the distress signal. And then the movie started coming out and it's like, I don't want to know. Maybe it's better that I don't know. It's just leave it to my
Yeah,
imagination.
too many details.
Yeah.
But do you think the reason that because it is very the art is no one is indifferent to it. Either you even if you like it or if you think it's disgusting or whatever, everyone gets a reaction. And there's this idea that it's because it's very phallic. And not just the alien, the face hugger. If you look at it closely, it looks like other things, and all his art is wrapped into some sort of sexual reference. You think that helps as well to bring that level of discomfort and make people pay attention without realizing, and it becomes more visceral because of it. Even just the chest bursting scene, it's been debated in many psychology classes. You know, all those elements, I think, to me, watching it again, they were stronger than the script itself.
Hmm.
That's where the genius of the movie is, because the story is quite simple. No bad decisions were made, and then this happened. But those elements with Ash was a great addition. If he wasn't a robot, it wouldn't have worked. And you are absolutely right what he was saying. The way that he almost envy not the creature, but that he wasn't created by that creature, and I guess that comes into play later on. But yeah, the themes, the underlying visuals, I think they play a lot more than just what is being acted and said in the movie.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, sorry, go on, Steve.
No, I was going to mention the face hugger, its design, and it looks it. I think it's when you look at what the underside of it looks like, it looks like a vagina. Like so you wonder and that's the creature that kind of it's almost like an assault, like a sexual thing where it sends its tube down your throat. So it's it wraps around your face and then it bursts out of your chest. It's almost like it's impregnating you, but it's I think that makes it more frightening that
In
it seems so
reverse.
personal. It seems like like it's not just a random thing like a contagion in the air that you just inhale. It's like it's assaulting you, like it's raping you basically.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's one of the kind of sexual iconography based about with the creature's design and the actual kind of reproductive cycle that goes on. Like what we're saying, like as you said, like the face hugger, the underside of it looks like a vagina. The male rape, essentially, of Cain with the chest bursting scene. The shedding of the skin, like it's like as you were saying, Susanna, it takes all these kind of discomforting things that you would likely see in a kind of like giving birth to a child is like one of the most majestic things in the world, and you're just turning on its head right now, and you're like, no, we're going to make this look as gory and as not graphic. It's not the actual it's the intention, I think, of the alien design and its reproductive cycle that kind of makes you uncomfortable and makes you kind of feel like regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, this creature will essentially rape you and come out of your chest. Like, can you imagine bursting through the rib cage, through all those kind of like organs? It's crazy to kind of think of that, and then like becomes this. We don't learn in this particular film, but then later on, if the face hugger basically goes on a calf, you're going to get the kind of dog type alien sort of thing, and blah blah blah. And depending on what type of creature it kind of impregnates, this adapts to that form. Something that's kind of later on in the film series, and mostly in the kind of like comic books and stuff like that as well, that it kind of goes into. But it's just fascinating that this creature will, dependent on what it's impregnating, will become like this kind of version of it, sort of this dark shadowed version of it, like in that respect. So but yeah, I mean the phallic kind of head, once again, when I was that young watching it, didn't really kind of see that originally. There's that one scene when Ripley's in the shuttle, in the escape pod, and it kind of comes out of the piping sort of as she kind of blows the kind of steam on it. That was one point when I was sitting there going, "That just did I just see that? Did I just see its head? Like, and is that." You do that kind of thing the first time watching it. What I would love is to get someone who has never seen it before and just get their kind of like first reaction of the film. Because like we've probably watched it hundreds of times now and we've become probably a little desensitized to certain things. It would be good to kind of see it through a fresh pair of eyes and see certain segments and see if they kind of catch on to that type of thing, or if it's just like, huh, that's interesting. That would be a really interesting one to do.
I wonder.
I'm sure it has been done.
Yeah. I wonder too if it would have had the same impact. Susanna, you mentioned the art and the creature design if that imagery would have had the same impact today, because we're so desensitized to that kind of stuff. Like in 1979, maybe it wasn't maybe that often that we would see suggestive imagery like that. So that's maybe why it had the impact it did at the time. I wonder if it would have the same impact now, because it's everywhere you look, you see suggestive imagery. So it's not as taboo as it was, as it is, or as it was then.
Likely not. But then again, a lot of what we have today comes from Alien, from what from what came before. Yeah, so it's kind of hard to imagine that there's been plenty of imitations, let's call them that. Just again and again, you were just trying to shock the audience in different ways, but build on the same premise. So once has been done, that's it. It's hard to imagine. I mean, the 70s wasn't, they were just come up from the 60s. I mean, I think people were not necessarily prudes back then, just because they weren't used to see that in cinema that much. I think maybe in many aspects there was a more mature audience than now, that everything has to be, censored and viewer discretion, this and that, and a list of trigger warnings. Can you imagine the list of trigger warnings for Alien? Non-stop.
Oh man.
Yeah. It was just 5 minutes listening to the annoying voice. Just going.
Yeah, it's a long checklist for sure.
Sexual content, flashing images. It just gets
Tobacco,
Oh
foul
yeah,
language,
tobacco. Yeah.
Tobacco,
sexual
yes.
imagery. Yeah.
Alcohol abuse. Yeah, he would not stop.
Funny enough, you can watch this on Disney. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Disney
Wow.
owns it now, which is really
Yeah.
which is really worrying.
Uncensored. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they
It's
bought
interesting
Fox.
though that because I was always a fan of like the old Dark Horse comics as well with the Alien franchise, and now that Disney or Marvel have acquired it and stuff like that, you're seeing like the new storylines that are coming out in the comics. Okay, but not like the old school ones. Like the Dark Horse did it really well. So
Yeah, and Anthony mentioned Predator, and I think in a movie like Predator, I think I've watched it recently, and it is of the time. Like it's dated. You can it's very everybody's like muscle bound. It's like a typical 80s action movie, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just what it is. But in this one, everyone seems like normal people, and we get to know them. I think we don't get the distress call until like 30 minutes into the film, and we don't see the alien until almost an hour into the film.
yeah.
So it gives us a lot of time to spend with them, and we don't really even know who the main character is. Like we don't, because I think most people would assume Dallas was the main character, and then he dies.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's once again the beauty of it. Like going back to as you were saying, and I think like Susana, you were saying, like no one listens to the woman; they all get killed, and it's like completely right. But you'd think like it's interesting because this was obviously Sigourney Weaver's like debut as such, right? I mean, out of all the kind of cast members there, John Hurt and Tom Skerritt probably the most bankable names, if that makes sense. They were the stars in terms of like of that era. And there's like a lot of those type of scenes. Like there's once again like apparently there was a scene where when they're having the last meal, shall we say? Apparently Ridley Scott was on set, and they were directing. He kept on having a go at Sigourney Weaver, saying like, "You're not holding your cup of tea right," or something like that along those lines, and kept on. And she ended up basically like crying and like running out. And he basically came up to her and said like, "Look, I had to say it to you because John's not doing it." So he was kind of taking out the thing on her. Yeah. And that's good, just to sort of showcase that kind of weird thing of, because John Hurt at that time was like a theatrical man, and and I think Ridley Scott was such at that time like young director as well, and like didn't want to step on like toes of like these titans of the theatrical world or the Hollywood world sort of thing. So when you do, yeah, as you said, like you don't know who the main protagonist is. You've got Brett and you've got Parker, who are the kind of the grease guys who are in the lower decks. they're always, complaining about the pay. And you see these kind of like, it's really interesting that you kind of hear them like one would perceive Parker to be like this, a kind of aggressive kind of guy that's always talking about pay. He's like, look, I'm happy to do it if you pay me more. Ash, obviously, once again, with his motivations, is like saying like we forfeit everything if we don't go and investigate this, so we have to. And he's like, okay, well, I guess we've got to do it. We've got to go for the money, baby, right? Then you have like Lambert sort of thing, who's, I think, in the scheme of things, I think Lambert is presented as the audience member.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who, once again, what this film does really well, and it's not a perfect film by any means. There's a lot of imperfections involved, a lot of weird edit cuts, like when Ash's head is put on the table sort of thing. That's one of the worst cuts in the world. But when you see like Lambert sort of like looking over morosely when she doesn't want to be there, but it's like that point of like, when do you kind of speak up and say certain things? When Ripley is trying to decipher what we perceive to be a distress beacon is actually then a warning. Once again, like Ash is the one to kind of say like, what's the point? Like she's like, I'm going to go out after them. She's like, well, what's the point? By the time you get there, surely they'd already know there's a problem, right? So there's a lot of that kind of thing going on throughout the film with these characters. Yeah, as I said, like before, like I think for a part of it, I think Lambert she doesn't get much screen time in that respect. Once again, there's a lot of deleted scenes that aren't in the original cut. Most, I think, famously, when Ripley comes along the nest where she sees Brett kind of being molded into the egg, and that was meant to be the life cycle originally of the alien creature, was that it kind of takes its victims and it's kind of morphing into another egg sort of thing. Whereas then James Cameron, I think, quite in a good way, took it and no, there's actually a queen and whatnot sort of thing. But she comes across Dallas, who basically is incapacitated in a certain respect, and is just asking her to kill him. But yeah, I mean, you don't know who the main character is until obviously you're getting off one by one, and then Ripley emerges as this kind of survivalist in that respect. You could call her the final girl, one of the, I suppose not really in that kind of era, because you had a lot of slashers at that time as well. So she wasn't the first final girl or anything like that. But I think it was the first time when you actually cared about the kind of people or the characters on screen, and because, as you said, Steve, like you take a lot of time to get to know these characters, and they don't have to like it. What I think is really great about the kind of character interactions, as I said, let's look at Brett. The main lines that he says in this film is right, and they even pick up on it. He's like a damn parrot sort of thing. But then when you see that kind of close up of Harry Dean Stanton sort of thing when he's in that area, and I think he even said to Ridley Scott, like, I just want to thank you for giving me that moment, because that kind of like, you see all the lines in his face, all the kind of the sound as well, the sound design of like the rain pouring on his cap, stuff like that is just like, wow, that is iconic. We go from there.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is true, and I have this half memory of Ridley Scott saying that he purposely wrote Ripley as the survivor because no one would expect her that would be her.
Yeah, I think
Not
like
just
in the
because she's a
original
woman,
screenplay. Yeah, sorry, go on, Susan.
Not just because she's a woman, but because she was portrayed at the beginning as, that come across as very unlikable and not particularly proactive. Just the naysayer, so that people would kind of almost root for her to be the first one to go. Which I thought it was, he knew how to play the psychology of the audience to some degree.
I mean, it's interesting, because like their first, I think it's when they decide to go through the air vents with the flamethrower. I think at that point they're obviously still trying to think that they can actually kill the creature, even though we know from the facehugger that it bleeds acid for blood. I mean, that's going to be a whole breach right there if you kind of flame this thing in the air vents. But, I think that's when they still think that there is a way that they can sort of get rid of this creature or blow it off into space. I think in the original, there's the Alien Isolation DLC that has the kind of script part where they're meant to actually, there's a whole scene where they trap the creature in an airlock and they're going to jettison it into space like Kane. and then for whatever reasons, I think Ash has some kind of sabotage involved sort of thing, but it escapes. But they obviously didn't film it, or they cut it, whatever. It's in the DLC for the Alien Isolation game that you can play as the characters from Alien. You can play as like Ripley or Parker or Lambert, I think, or Dallas, and you can actually do that kind of weird scene. So is that once again that lore of like, you know, trying to build things in here. But sorry, I rambled a bit there, sort of thing. I forgot what the question was. Apologies. But you were saying, Susanna, about the... Oh, yeah. So going back to like when Ripley, when they have that kind of decision and Dallas goes into the tunnels, which then I guess has this other kind of fear of people that have claustrophobia, you know, you're going to be doing that sort of thing. It's only until after that happens, when it's a kind of failed attempt, that they go like, look, we'll just blow up the ship. We're just going to get on the shuttle. We'll take our chances and we'll just blow up the ship, kind of thing. Because they know that this alien is actually, this creature is intelligent, and it knows the air ducts. It knows it's made itself its second home, essentially. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think Anthony mentioned that Lambert is the audience. I think, wouldn't most of us be Lambert though? Like in that situation, I think most would be Hicks or Lambert.
Like, yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah, like I think that's the whole kind of point. Like they had to have a character that was, I don't know about this, guys. I think we need to get out. Like I think she personifies the audience member in that respect of like you'd be doing the same, of like going, you know, I don't want to be here. I want to get out. Let's just blow up the ship. Let's take our chances. Let's do this. Like stuff like that. Bit worried. Yeah, definitely.
Susanna is shaking her
No,
head.
I would be Ripley. If the moment they open that door, I would be in a shuttle. That'll be the difference. I'll be saying no, no, no. And the moment they open the door, I'll be in a shuttle, because nothing good comes out of it. And I've played plenty of role playing games where, you know, the party just goes, and I know they're gonna do something stupid, and I take off. So that would be me.
Run for the hills.
I never submit to peer pressure. No, no way.
I am out of here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, it makes me laugh when you hear actors now, like, you know, female actors now saying, "Oh, I was the first female action star in the Hunger Games." Like Jennifer Lawrence said that recently. It's like,
yeah, gosh, I don't know what she was thinking.
I mean, it's like, why would you say something so stupid?
Because she doesn't know any better, I guess. Because life started, you know, in the year 2000. I don't know. This generation is wrong.
Just wrong. Just wrong.
Just go and at least watch some classic movies and something, please.
I mean, it is interesting. Like, as you do mention, like, you know, Jennifer Lawrence with the Hunger Games and stuff like that, and you know, even before, you know, Alien, there were loads of like different kind of characters and different kind of films where you had, you know, female leads as such that I don't think off the top of my head, I couldn't think of anything. Whereas you don't know in this particular film, like you don't know who the main character that you're meant to be rooting for is. I may have to think about that one for a bit and come back to you. But like this is that kind of instance. Jonesy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah. The one character who, well, okay, so speaking of characters, and there's a lot of discussion around what the alien does to Lambert. Speaking of the whole suggestive imagery and everything, it seems like it takes his time with her. She's the only female that it kills, right? Because everyone else it kills, it converts to either tries to convert them to eggs or just kills them. So it seems like he didn't kill her quickly, and there's some, the way its tail comes up between her legs, and there's some
sound
discussion.
effects.
Yeah, and her screaming
and the way that her foot is dangling. Yeah, but that plays into the whole sexual theme of rape. Pretty much that's what the alien does to make the audience uncomfortable. It does play into that a lot.
Yeah, no, it's
You
interesting. And
you are listening, and you're just, yeah, everything goes through your head. You know what can be happening that would make her make those sounds. It's very well done in a twisted way, of course.
yeah, I've got to say that's one of the probably greatest screams or death throes in kind of cinema sort of thing, when Ripley's running down the corridors and all you hear is this kind of like almost choked gargled sort of, and then like you have that kind of end scream at the end sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, I think in the novelization of the film, Parker gets his apparently can't use the flamethrower because Lambert's in the way, so he throws himself at the alien, but the alien kind of just snaps his neck. Like it's a very kind of straightforward snapping of the neck in the novelization. But with Lambert, yeah, like as you said, I think as you both kind of like said, it's kind of more drawn out, and I think it's more kind of exploitative for the era, shall we say, to have the only female kind of character. I mean, obviously, we don't see what happens to her. We see the kind of end result. But yeah, she basically, you have legs dangling where the clothes are off. Like, why are the clothes off? Why is she now from her foot to her shin? Why is that now? Why are the clothes gone? So I think it is that kind of suggested. Once again, it's like the kind of Hitchcock psycho sort of stabbing in the bathroom scene, right? You don't see any of the stabs connect. You just see the blood or the black and white sort of thing of it, and your mind kind of suggests certain things. I think that is a kind of prime example of your mind suggesting certain things, especially with the tail coming up between the legs. Yeah.
And you know, 80s movies, 80s action movies, even this time period, but none of them turn into Rambo, or none of them turn into a a soldier, or James Bond. Ripley survives because she's intelligent and cunning, not because she knows how to kill, or she doesn't turn into this killing machine herself. She's able to survive because she uses her brain, basically.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important, I think, parts of this is towards the end when she throws the switch of mother sort of thing to, destroy the warp core, whatever it is. And she kind of she's traveling to the shuttle, and then she sees the alien creature in the way, and she kind of backs away. She can't, she goes back to try and put the cork back in the bottle, so to speak, and it doesn't work. So that in itself, like, that's when her main frustration comes out, when she starts like saying, "Mother, I've turned off the coolants. Like, what's going on?" And Mother's like, "No, the ship's still going to explode." So she has to fight through that. Like, she wants to even then you can still see she's using logic, she's using reasoning, but she's also scared. Like, she's also like afraid of her life. So she goes back once again. It's taken out of her hands. She has to now bulldoze her way through this, and that's what she does, because it's a great character moment, because it kind of showcases the fact that given the situation, she will overcome, she will adapt, much like the alien creature itself. And I think that's why in later iterations of the franchise, that's why they kind of made Ripley be part alien.
Oh, let's not go there yet. No, but thumbs up.
We don't
for
talk about
Sigourney
alien resurrection.
Weaver.
We don't talk about it.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Thumbs up for Sigourney Weaver performance. The only bit in the movies that I was scared, because I don't scare easily, but is when she's in the shuttle and she's, the performance is perfect. And she's singing to herself to just kind of calm down, and she knows the alien is right there, and the way that she's shaking and trying to sing, that was an amazing performance. That is the moment that I am scared for her, if I knew that thing was right there, and the way she's just shaking, looking over her, beautiful. That I just talking about it, I can feel my hairs in the back
Yeah,
of my neck standing up.
it's a great cinematic moment, especially when you see in her
Such
helmet.
good actress.
Very sort of
Yeah.
2001 when you have the kind of when she's slowly pushing the buttons in order to kind of jettison the, or release the pressure in the hole sort of thing,
Yeah.
and then you just basically see these little lights lighting up, and she just takes that moment where she looks over her shoulder, and you just see these
Yeah.
like jaws right there. Yeah, I think funny enough as well. The Lucky Lucky Star that she uses as a mantra as a song. I think the the producers weren't particularly happy because they had to pay an extortionate amount to be able to use
Really?
the yeah.
There's
So
always something.
there's always something. There's always something. But I love once again, like it's something that I kind of wish they kind of carried on into the kind of subsequent films that like she used that maybe because of the reason because they had to get the rights for the song. They couldn't do it. But I think that would have been like, even in Aliens when she's going down the lift to kind of get Newt sort of thing. Just like a little throwaway like you are my lucky luck. I thought that would have been nice, a nice kind of caveat sort of thing, kind of throwback to the thing.
But I don't know if you've ever been that scared. I thought it was beautiful because when you are that scared, I mean, singing helps. Just having the
Oh,
tune,
definitely, yeah.
yes, and
Yeah.
genius. Yeah, it's very well done.
Yeah, I think like we had mentioned earlier, when the alien does make it on the ship, and on the shuttle, and when she sends it out of the airlock and it catches itself, and then she shoots it with a harpoon thing. I think it would have, if it would have just gone out into space, that would have been a perfect ending.
Better. Yeah.
But seeing it crawl back in, and then you get a good look at the alien, and I think that kind of it didn't ruin the rest of it, but I think it kind of was out of place for the rest of the film that we just see bits and pieces.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like as we said earlier, it's the first time you see the whole alien creature, and you're just like, it's a man in a suit sort of thing. I mean, I like the fact that it's obviously he's trying to survive. Once again, we're talking about like the themes of the film, and like I think mortality and surviving is one of them. And this creature is obviously that its pure design is to survive, and so in order for it to go up the rocket thruster or whatever it is kind of thing. I think that just kind of is trying to showcase the fact that this thing doesn't want to die. But I think you're right. It would have been more cinematic if the harpoon gun would have just shot the thing out and then it just went into space. But I don't know.
It seems something that Ridley Scott enjoys because he does the exact same saying or a very similar saying in Legend. I don't know if it was intentional, an homage, or it just likes to see bad guys dying that way, blown up into space, but have just one last moment holding on. I don't know why. I would pass, but anyway, it's their thing. It's fine.
Yeah, he comes back to that again later in the franchise, but we'll talk about that later.
As well. Yeah. He likes that. Maybe it's his signature thing. That's all right.
Yeah, the eggs, converting the people to eggs. I'm trying to decide which is more terrifying: either a queen that hatches eggs or converting you to an egg.
I mean, I know my preference. I would not like to be either. See, this is the funny thing then, and I reckon this is one of the reasons why that scene. I mean, for pacing issues, this is the reason why allegedly the scene was deleted from the original theatrical cut, was because it was a pacing thing. Ripley's trying to sort of run away, get to the shuttle ship, and it spends then 5 minutes where she goes into this like deep bowels of hell, this almost purgatory sort of style, and she sees the kind of nest where Brett is being metamorphosized into an egg, and then Dallas is obviously there as well. I personally would prefer an alien queen, like a kind of beehive colony type thing, to kind of be set in eggs rather than being turned into an egg. But I suppose it's the kind of science of how that happens. I think that's probably why it was never sort of that route was never taken, because how would, I suppose it's once again, you kind of, there's sci-fi where I think everything so far has been grounded, and that's one of the reasons why I think this film is so good, because it has that grounded anchorage of everything serves a purpose, like we were saying before. There was something actually, one of the things that I do like with Mother, when they're in a central hub, and like, Dallas is there saying, what are my chances? And you see all the blinking lights. And I do think at certain points it's like, most sort of films set in the 70s sci-fi just have blinking lights for blinking lights. And I think in this particular film with the Nostromo, the majority of times you have lights and you feel like they serve a purpose. But there is certain scenes where it's like, these are just blinking lights just for like having the different colors on screen. But yeah, being metamorphosized into an egg, I can understand probably why they chose not to go down that route, because of the fact of like, how does the human body, is it just like a kind of fleshy thing? I would like to see how that would if we went down a different route now, if James Cameron didn't make the decision, which I think it was aptly made, that we have an actual queen that lays these eggs rather than be metamorphosized. I think it would be interesting, but I think it was the right decision to kind of like check it out. But to answer your question, Steve, sorry, long ramble, but yes, I would not like to be made into an egg. That would not be my favorable thing to be.
Same. I think just personally, no, thank you. No, don't want to be turned into an egg, of course. But the amount of explanation, and yeah, I don't know how they would even begin. And there's a lot of things to explain. Like, for example, how did the alien went from that size to then suddenly that size in
Yeah.
that short period of time? Fine, we don't need to know, and we don't need a scene of the little alien raiding the kitchen, anything, everything, and then going to a chrysalis and shed. That was completely unnecessary. So, but I don't think they could get away, hand waving the change from a human into an egg. So yeah, brilliant idea, and especially if you look at the alien as a character, it fits the character a little bit more, that it is just a soldier drone, with that objective, kill and protect, survive. You know, everything else would just be too much, and you'd make it less scary, in a way. It would be more because we already have the parasite stage. So why then you would turn the human into no, too much. So that was a good decision.
Yeah, because it is if the eggs are a result of someone or something being converted into an egg, then where did all the eggs on the ship come from?
Exactly.
There has to be. I'm curious to see if we ever do get that next one that's supposed to tie into the beginning of Alien. There's a lot of the timeline too. I wonder, because the space jockey, they said, has been dead for a long time. It's almost fossilized. But I think the timeline in the other movies is. I'm not sure if it lines up to be fossilized.
No, but that's fine, because no one in the crew and no one that found the space jockey was actually an expert. Say that was fossilized, and they don't. You can argue that you don't know what sort of life form it was. You could have a completely different deterioration rate. So you can argue that they didn't know what they were talking about. So
Could be, yeah.
unreliable narrator there. So
It's true.
that's fine.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm not sure if we'll ever get that other series, or the last of this other trilogy, but maybe one day. Not sure if so. Question to both of you: do you want a movie to line up to butt up to this one, or would you rather leave it to your imagination?
After everything that was done, no, please leave it alone. Don't try to tie or explain anything else. I
would disagree. I would like, because I like what they've done with David. One of the things that you can say they've done right in the more recent films is I do like the fact that you have an android who's now kind of creating through. I mean, we'll discuss this in the other films, kind of thing, but I like the fact that it's once again coming back to Ash, like what I was saying earlier, sort of thing, in terms of he's been made by man and he feels himself to be impure and he feels himself to be like he's envious of the creature. So I do like that, even though some of the themes moving forward in like Prometheus, there was a heavy religious type of sort of theme there. And in Covenant, I think it was just more of a trying to take the aliens aspect of like having a group of people come onto la la la. I do like the fact that, yeah, I would like it to be a cycle, because when we look at the alien life form, there is a kind of reproductive cycle that goes on. I would like it to be sort of tied up, but I wouldn't want it to be done in a way that makes it disingenuous, if that makes sense. I do like the mystery, but we've already had the mystery kind of. We've already had the Wizard of Oz kind of turn back the curtain sort of thing. We know what the engineers are now. So that kind of part of that mystery is already being done for us. So yeah, I would like a finalization of it. I would like to have it come full circle. And the fanboy in me would like whatever the third film, like I would like the ending to be, you see the Nostromo going through space and you hear a kind of the distress beacon or whatever. And it's like, there you go. There's the kind of the nice, whether that's going to happen, I don't think it will. But I still want to see David's plight. I want to see where he goes. Yeah.
I'll do the fingering. You like that one?
One of the most unintentional, funniest scenes in recent history.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So, Susanna, you think Leave It Alone? You don't not a fan?
Yeah, there's too many plot holes. Just leave it alone.
It's like Swiss cheese at the moment. I will agree, but
yeah. If anyone can do it, yeah, give it a try. But I honestly can't see how. I sometimes play this game myself. How would I fix this movie or that movie, or just from, and I could not fix this franchise at all. So I don't know.
Yeah, I blame Marvel. I blame Marvel for a lot of things, but it's this whole shared universe shit that like Ridley Scott couldn't help himself. He had to just let's bring Blade Runner into this universe. Let's make it a shared universe. No, stop, leave it alone. Why do you want to bring Blade Runner into this? Like, it's a whole different thing. Why do you want to? It's almost like he's like just like. It's like, stop, just leave it alone. Like, just finish the story.
Exactly.
You're trying to combine two worlds that had never been connected before. Just finish the story. Don't bring.
It's interesting because the TV series that's going to be coming out soon, that's written and directed by Noah Hawley, is apparently set 3 decades before the events of the first film, and it's going to be set on Earth, and it's going to have. It's going to be more based about the kind of corporate part of things rather than the actual alien life cycle. I mean, you're going to have you can't have an alien TV show without having that kind of happen. I wonder if that's going to have, I think that will probably be getting to the point of maybe the end of the series of the first thing will have, the Nostromo, like set some kind of corporate stooge sending the details through saying like, oh, we've got this tugboat that's in the outer rim. They need to kind of like go blah, 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 blah. What I would personally like to see is with Amanda Ripley. I think that's the way forward. I think like to have Ripley's daughter. I mean, she's already had the game. That was like a massive success. If they did something with that, I think I'd be interested again. It'd reignite my flame, my passion for the series. But I don't know where they could go with the third film to kind of wrap it all up.
I thought
we'll have to wait and see.
I thought the Alien, the one that they were working on, was like a modern day thing that was totally screw the timeline. Or is that they change it?
Romulus, I think. I'm not sure if that's the actual TV show or the actual another sort of film. I mean, it would have been interesting to see Neil Blomkamp's version of Alien 5, essentially, bringing back Hicks and Ripley. But then this is maybe a bit later on sort of thing. We got to Alien 3, the amount of different iterations that had. Oh, what could have been? I mean, oh wow, what could have been is just so tantalizing, to think about. But there you go.
Well, sadly, I can't make it on the weekend for Alien 3 because I would have things to say. I've watched all versions and yeah. I'll just have to listen to it.
Yeah, yeah. We'll be curious to see what version we decide on, but yeah, I think it's interesting that we now the horror is more about corporations and companies and I don't know. I think there's something to be said about escapism, and it's okay to be afraid of a of terrifying creature in outer space who wants to kill you and turn you into an egg, and a face hugger that wants to send its tube down your throat and impregnate you. And you don't always have to bring real life into these stories. Like, it's okay to not talk about an evil corporation. It's,
Exactly. We were talking about horror, and how it's always the people that are the real monsters. Alien is one of the exceptions. In the first Alien, the alien was the monster. We really have, people were stupid, but that was a proper adversary. There was a proper enemy.
You
It
had
was the
Ash as
sort of
well. I
thing
mean,
you would
we can't
not.
just let Ash off the hook here now.
No, I'm not. No, Ash was a surprise, but the concept of the evil androids wasn't new. It fit the story very well, but it wasn't exactly surprising. But to have an actual alien, an actual monster, something that would scare you, and yeah, a proper monster to deal with, that it's not human. And then even in Aliens, it kind of it starts to shift to the human, and and we go there, and it was great, but in a way it kind of made me sad, because it was one of the few that for once we couldn't blame humanity for it.
yeah.
Turns out apparently you do. You're like, oh dear, why?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, it'll be a fun discussion. Anything else you guys can think of for Alien?
No, just great movie. I think despite everything, it still holds up pretty
Oh
well,
yeah.
and great performances. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, I
Despite
agree. I
all
mean,
my
like,
complaints, I think it's good.
yeah, it's not a perfect film in that regards. It is, at the end of the day, I think this has been said before, like a B movie in space that's elevated by the cinematography, by the direction, by the acting. It's one of the few creature features that actually delivers by giving you an actual scary monster that will give people nightmares. And there's certain layers that are still being discussed today in a kind of psychological kind of sense from the kind of mega conglomerate corporations, that we're seeing even more prevalent today. That kind of aspect of it. You've got mortality, you've got reproduction, you've got iconography coming out of the wazoo sort of thing. To kind of just label this as a kind of sci-fi horror is not in its, doesn't give it credit sort of thing, because that's it offers so much more. And that's one of the reasons why 40 years later it still stands up, almost like John Carpenter's The Thing. The kind of the effects are right. Fair enough, there are a few ones that have dated a little bit, I will admit that. But also it just elevates the genre to another level, and that's what will always be prevalent in this particular film. So yeah, it's one of the films that I will always go back to. I can always watch back again and pick up something new, or think of something new that is coming into the fray, sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, one of the greats, definitely. Awesome. Well, in the meantime, Anthony, where can people find you?
You can go on Amazon if you want to read a bit of dystopia fiction with my novel Birthday Treat and a short horror collection called Cat's Box and Other Tales. And if you want to catch me on YouTube, you can do so by looking at Horrible. Yeah.
Nice. And Susana.
You can find me on Page Chewing, X, and on my YouTube channel, Den of the Weird.
Awesome.
You can find my books pretty much everywhere. They are now on special on Amazon, the ebooks, 99 cents. So go check them out.
go get them. Yeah, I'll have all
The
those
book,
links down below.
the series is named Timelessness. The first book is Weird Gods. I did the same thing yesterday. It helps if I say the name of the book.
Yeah. It's hard to remember all this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I know.
It's hard to,
But I should have it, Terrible.
yeah. I'll have the links down below. Make it easier for everyone. Just click the link and it'll take you right to it. So cool. So until next week, we'll talk to everyone very soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.